Superbad movie review. So this is another one of my scripted movie review series in which I go through an old review I wrote years ago on the weblog and try and make a YouTube video out of it for whatever that may or may not be worth. I was mentioning in a previous video that it's interesting going through these old movie reviews and remembering all these movies that used to be big deals at the time and which nobody really talks about anymore. This strikes me as another example, or am I wrong? Do people still talk about this? I saw this movie in 2011, and I was already late to the party by that time because it came out in 2007 and became quite popular quite quickly. I mean, it was never a mega blockbuster, but it was a teen comedy that was popular with the younger crowd and which achieved the status of instant classic fairly quickly. I'm going to spoil some of the humor in this movie if you haven't already seen it, meaning I'm going to tell some of the jokes and it's not going to be as funny when I do it. So if you haven't already seen the movie, you want to see the movie first before you watch me ruin the jokes. But if you have seen the movie, you're familiar that a lot of the humor of this movie comes from the name McLovin. So in the movie, there's a nerdy kid who is getting a fake ID so that he can buy alcohol. And when he gets the fake ID from, this shady guy or whoever he has to pay for it, he gets to choose the name, and he chooses the name McLovin. And then he brings it back to his two friends who are planning on him using this fake ID to get alcohol for all their plans. And they're just absolutely outraged. Because when you get a fake ID, you want to choose a real name that's going to fool somebody. You don't want to get like a stupid name like McLovin. And yet, I think it works as a joke because it's just plausible enough that a high school kid would think that would be a good name to have in a fake ID. The humor is further increased by the fact that this is a rather nerdy high school kid. So the fact that he in particular is going by the name of McLovin makes it all the funnier. It's amazing, really, how much humor this movie milks from the name McLovin. People are shouting the name out all the time throughout this movie. And through much of the movie, that is just the joke. You're just supposed to laugh at the ridiculous name McLovin. And yet, it works. I mean, it had me chuckling, the sheer absurdity of that name McLovin. It's also become kind of the catchphrase for this movie. So if you say Superbad to somebody, or at least if you said Superbad to somebody 10 years ago, you were probably going to get the result of, McLovin. I was told by a friend, actually, that the McLovin scene in this movie was played on TV a lot back in 2007 or 2008, presumably when they were showing clips of this movie on talk shows or something. I don't know. I was actually living in Japan during the time that this movie came out. So somebody who was living in the States in the time can maybe let me know how accurate that is. So aside from McLovin, moving on to the other elements in this movie, this is the kind of film where the humor sort of grows on you. At least for me. I wasn't laughing very hard while I was actually watching it. But there were a number of things that stuck in my mind and had me quietly laughing to myself over the next few days, just thinking about this film. For example, Jonah Hill being so upset that he didn't have a partner in home ec. Didn't really laugh out loud while I was watching the movie, but I was quietly chuckling about it as I thought about it the next few days. Same with Michael Cera's character singing These Eyes. Now, judged in an absolute sense, this may not be the best movie ever, but film review is always done comparatively. You have to judge it against its genre, and as high school comedies go, I think this is near the top of the list. I was talking to a friend, somebody roughly about the same age as me, and he said, when I was in high school, we had American Pie, and that was such a terrible movie. Wouldn't it have been great to have a movie like this when we were in high school? And I agree with that completely. This film is much more intelligent and it's got a much better sense of quirky humor than those stupid American Pie movies, which were popular when I was... Actually, I'm a little bit too old to have seen them in high school. They were popular when I was in college, but close enough. The serious reservation I have about this movie is the two police officers, played by Bill Hader and Seth Rogen, who are in this teenage comedy movie, but don't really seem to fit within the teenage comedy movie. In fact, they seem to come from a different film entirely, and I thought they were going to ruin the film at first. But as they went on, they grew on me, and I thought by the end, they justified their existence. Although their moronic banter was so different from the more down-to-earth conversations of Jonah Hill and Michael Cera that it was slightly abrasive, at least in the context of this movie. Also, this movie had a great soundtrack. What else is there to say? It's worth seeing if you haven't seen it already.